Okay, check, check. Okay, and action. Are you ready to film? Greg, what did you think of the movie? Greg, are you okay? Greg, are you okay? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Night at the Movies. I'm June, this is Greg, and tonight we saw Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker.
It's an instinct. A feeling. The Force brought us together.
So, what did you think of Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker?
I don't want to talk about it.
We have to talk about Rise of Skywalker, babe. We have to. That's why the people are here. We gotta talk about the movie. How did you like the movie?
I wrote down some of my thoughts here. Disney Star Wars and the Rise of Existential Dread. Chapter 1, My Crippling Depression. Why don't you tell me what you thought?
It was weird. There were little parts that I liked, but mashed together wasn't good. Like, they were just like, there was like ingredients thrown in there that I liked as a concoction. Didn't taste very good.
I had fun overall. I enjoyed aspects of it. Certainly way more than I enjoyed The Last Jedi.
So I felt too.
But I felt way more exhausted at the end of this one.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
There's a scene at the end of the movie that's a perfect visual metaphor. There's a giant auditorium with thousands of people in the stands, and then there's a big explosion and thousands of rocks get thrown at them and they just get wiped off the face of the map. That audience was us. And those rocks were the plot of the movie, destroying us as we're sitting there eating our popcorn. That was my theater experience with Rise of Skywalker.
It was exhausting is such a good way to put it. I felt like physically and mentally tired leaving the theater. I was just like, it was an onslaught of just being thrown at you, like nonsense.
Well, the plot just keeps happening and keeps going and going, and it's twists and turns and corkscrews and backflips, and it never stops. And then there was this point in the movie when they're in the desert and they had just gotten out of the cave, and I'm like, okay, the movie just needs to stop for a second. They need to just sit down, talk about the next plan. We need to absorb what just happened. And right as I said that to myself, Poe Dameron goes, "We can't stop, we gotta keep moving." Of course, you just can't stop, can't absorb what we just saw. We have to just keep going, don't think about it, just go to the next thing.
Like, compare this to the 4th episode, you know, like the first one ever.
A New Hope.
Yeah, like, it's slow paced and like whatever, and you, oh god, this one is just like.
So my theory with this is that JJ was...
Sorry.
I love you.
So my theory with this is that JJ was so disappointed in the way that the story kind of halted in Rian Johnson's movie that he was almost sort of making up for all the bowling pins that Rian didn't knock down. JJ's like, okay, well, Rey trains now, and it's just like has this arbitrary training session at the beginning. It's just sort of weird just to make it look like she's improved over time, because Rian Johnson didn't really communicate how she evolved as a Jedi in any way. So I got to show that real quick. You know, she's jumping around beating up droids, whatever.
This whole movie felt like J.J. Abrams damage controlling for Rian Johnson's mess.
Yes, however, he overcorrected. Even though I was more angry and frustrated having left the theater watching The Last Jedi, at least The Last Jedi was trying to say something. At least it was doing a deconstruction of the Star Wars universe and trying to be meaningful. Ryan was trying to communicate something specific to the audience. What the f is the point of Rise of Skywalker? What is JJ trying to communicate to us? It's meaningless. Ultimately, it's about friendship.
Yeah,
friendship,
stick
guys.
together.
We're all friends.
This really did, again, it felt like two directors fighting with each other.
Little dueling banjos going on. Yeah,
it was like, oh, you know that other thing from the other movie? Forget that. This is the thing now. Like, I get to take control.
There are very few references to Last Jedi, and there's way more references to Force Awakens. Almost like JJ's trying to remind you of all the plot points that he had set up in that first movie. It's like, well, we gotta put him back in here, except there's certain things that are just completely lost. Like, he decides to bring back the Knights of Ren, which was a thing alluded to.
Like, I didn't even remember what that was,
Yes,
and you started laughing when they showed up.
It was a thing that was alluded to in the first movie.
Like emo boy army.
There's literally no point in the Knights of Ren. They sort of just arbitrarily show up in the background of every shot. It's just like, oh, they've been watching us the whole time. But then to what end? They end up in a fist fight with Kylo Ren right at the end for no reason. JJ doesn't even tell us who they are. Who are they? Doesn't matter. Why are they following the main cast around? Doesn't matter. Why did they decide that they're not on Kylo Ren's team anymore?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Why are they even on the Sith planet at the end? Doesn't matter. Just it's cool.
It looks cool.
It's cool.
You laughed every time they showed up on the screen.
Because it was meaningless. It was pointless.
But you know why they exist? You collect them all. You better f***ing not. You better not, though.
A lot of the new things in the movie, I was just thinking, like, when they're introduced, it's just like, oh, yep, that's the new toy.
Yeah.
Like, the new droid looks like Lampy, your favorite character from The Littlest Toaster.
Brave little toaster. I drew him.
When I saw that lamp in the preview, I knew that June was absolutely going to be responding to that. The other thing, they had motorcycle tank snowmobiles with jetpack launcher men, and it's just like, why do they have vehicles with tracks?
Remember?
In the Star Wars universe. The Star Wars universe has flying, floating vehicles. Why would you want a vehicle with tracks? Because it could just easily eat up things into the tracks.
Which happened.
That's exactly what happened.
Remember when...
But isn't it cool when they launch jetpack guys from the back?
And then Poe went, they fly now?
They
can
fly
fly
now. They fly now.
Thanks, okay. That was like you in the Last Jedi. Princess Leia can fly.
Princess Leia can fly.
Stormtroopers can fly.
You know in Last Jedi how the theme was forget the past, kill it if you must? I feel like the theme of Rise of Skywalker was drudge up the past, reanimate its corpse if you must, which is very true, at least in the sense with Princess Leia.
Oh God, yeah.
They definitely relied way too heavily on her character. I was expecting them to kill her off like right at the beginning.
The CGI for her face actually looked really good though.
Well, they copy-pasted her from Force Awakens. A lot of what you saw was just reused footage that was made to make her look older. I don't know how they did the voice, though. Did they use, like, old voice clips that they didn't use in the earlier films?
Do you find it kind of creepy they're using dead actors, though?
Oh,
it's
no,
almost
I'm
like
totally
without their
against it.
consent that they're in these movies.
It's not even about the consent, because people were arguing that Carrie Fisher would like it, and that's maybe. When it comes to the way we treat dead people, it has more to do with the way that it affects the living than it does with the dead.
Yeah,
and
but this
we
is
need
just
to
Disney making money.
Right, so I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that we as the audience, knowing that Carrie Fisher's dead, being in love with her because she had been Princess Leia for 30, 40 years now. I grew up with her. I have a fucking poster of her.
Yes, in a bikini, yes.
Well, it's irrelevant what she's wearing. The point is that she's meaningful to me. And to see this dead woman, like, have this long, extended hug scene with Rey, it's got an uncanny valley effect. And the fact that you know that she's actually dead only makes it that much worse. And then at the very end of the film, when they show her Force ghost, it's like doubly ironic because she actually is literally dead, and they're reusing old footage of her to depict her as a dead person. Whether or not it's disrespectful to the character is less relevant to the fact that it's disrespectful to us, the fans.
We're not alone. Good people will fight if we lead them.
I have the fact that this should have been the second movie. This should have been the second one in the series. And also, Rey should have become evil, and that would have been the plot of the third one, was to get Rey back from the dark side. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, because literally nothing happens to Rey in the second one. I mean, not much happens to her in terms of character development anyways, because she already started off perfect.
Oh, that's another thing.
I mean, she really is, I mean, like they say, she's the Mary Sue.
I was just gonna say, so everyone like kind of goes, the fanboy's saying she's a Mary Sue, I'm sorry, but in this one, she was like the final form of Mary Sue. She never takes any damage. Like, Luke got his hand cut off, like everyone...
Kylo Ren ended up knocking her over, but she ends up making it through the entire series without losing a single limb, without having any consequences for any of her actions. And the only people that die separate of her actions. Well, that's not true, actually. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
You were really excited in the beginning when the Star Wars logo popped up. It was like, duh, 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 duh. You were like, woo! Like,
I mean, you can't beat
excited.
the movie, the theater experience of sitting there watching the title crawl for Star Wars. I mean, it is a very visceral experience.
So he's very excited, like just vibrating in his seat. I'm like, okay, chill out. The title crawl starts happening, and I just see him, I feel him next to me dying inside, and then he just starts laughing. I'm like, shh, shh, shh.
Couldn't even make it through the opening title crawl. And the movie starts off sort of neat. It starts off with Kylo Ren slaughtering a bunch of people, going kind of on his little quest. And that's sort of neat, but then at the end of his quest, he finds the Phantom Emperor. And we basically find out that every time we saw the Emperor and Snoke before this moment, they were actually clones that the Emperor was controlling from the Sith Temple.
I lost it at the Snokes in a jar. Baby, I lost it.
Even the Emperor that we see at the end of Revenge of the Sith, the one that got his face all melted from electricity that we later see in the throne room, that was a clone.
All the retconning in this was painful. Like, I was cringing for you.
See, retconning is like, it can be done right, but something that big suddenly makes a whole bunch of other scenes earlier in the series completely meaningless. Darth Vader threw him over the ledge and he died, fulfilling their destiny. Remember all the fulfilling the destiny? That was all a lie. That wasn't real. None of Star Wars before that very moment was real. But now it's real, guys, because now we're fighting the final boss, Emperor.
So this whole movie was just sloppy, messy, disorganized, just bizarre. Before this, I was like, okay, babe, you need to lead this review because I don't even remember anything because it was just an assault on my senses. And I barely remember anything from the movie because there was just so much shit.
I was having a lot of trouble figuring out where they were going to go with this one. And one of the fan theories, at least a little bit earlier on, was that Snoke was a clone being controlled by the Emperor. And that and a bunch of other fan theories, like the worst fan theories I had ever read,
Came true.
All of them ended up being what J.J. Abrams went with. I was going to do like a prediction again before this, but I was completely wrong. I was hoping that it was going to be a better movie than it was going to be, and it ended up just devolving into a nonsensical series of fetch quests, each more frustrating than the last. And the series of fetch quests ends up being the only real structure of the film, because what the story ends up being is like 3 stories that are sort of melded together in a very schizophrenic way. and the end product is just an assault on your senses. Like, I've literally seen Zack Snyder movies that had better pacing than this. It was like Michael Bay directed Star Wars.
That's a good way to put it. It was very video game, like, get this thing, now it's in this one, this level, now we're on the Death Star, now we're here.
That's fine as long as it's a coherent series of events, all working towards a meaningful, cathartic ending. But you end up sort of forgetting what the fuck is even going on most of the film, and all you really know is that they need to get this thing. They need to get this holocron. They need to get this dagger. And then there's even a mystery surprise quest item that's gifted to Rey halfway through the film that made me go fucking ballistic.
And then there's, in each level, you meet a new character. Hey, I will help you find the thing. And the character helps you find the thing. And it's just like, alright. You
remember when Lando helps them, and then they go into that room, and then he takes off his mask, and then it turns out that Lando is really Lando? Could you tell that that was going to be Lando? I knew immediately that was Lando.
Yeah, you were like, that's going to be Lando.
Immediately.
There's that new girl character. I thought she was cool. You were laughing at it, but I kind of liked her.
Which one? The sort of Boba Fett-y girl?
Yeah.
That Poe Dameron was hitting on? What I was more laughing at was that they were retconning a bunch of backstory for Poe, trying to cram in as much as possible. Yeah, there's this one scene where they find out that he used to be a spice runner, and it's like, oh wow, he was just like Han Solo.
Finn. Imagine having a character who's an ex-stormtrooper and basically only having him shout Rey for 3 movies.
Oh my god.
He is probably the most interesting out of all the characters. Like, you'd want to know more about someone who used to be a stormtrooper. Like, they're one of the most iconic Star Wars things. They're the enemy, and now he's like an ex-stormtrooper, and they did nothing with him.
They did
especially in the last one.
They did more with him this time. He does end up making a sacrifice at the end.
Finally.
And then Rose again tries to stop him, and he's like, bitch, back the fuck up.
I was so happy.
I'm making my sacrifice in this
I
film.
know, she almost did it.
Ryan Johnson almost fucking destroyed him.
What was that? Like,
do you remember the water bottle body suit scene?
That was lame. What? Why?
And then there's Rose Tico.
Apparently, she only had like 70 seconds of screen time.
Are you sure?
Apparently, that's the whole thing. Like, she was barely in it. I felt like she was barely in it.
Every time they went back to the main base, she was in the background behind the CGI Leia. She had quite a few lines, and even though she didn't feature as like a main character, she was even there at the last final battle. So she was playing an integral role. I think that they could have done her way worse. I think Ryan Johnson did her worse.
Yeah.
Because Marie Tran is a beautiful woman, she's a good actress, and he made her like this frumpy Muppet Ghostbuster lady. Yeah, she has more lines and everything, but her scenes are the worst scenes in The Last Jedi. And her character was so unbearable that, this is very regrettable, but she ended up getting bullied off of Instagram and Twitter or whatever, because the fans were pretty mean to her.
Why be mean to the actress? Like, the character sucks, but...
The character sucks, but that's not her fault.
Yeah.
That's Ryan Johnson's fault.
So you heard it here.
I'm so sorry.
You heard it here. Go,
I'm so
go
sorry,
cyberbully Ryan.
Yeah, cyberbully Ryan Johnson, not the beautiful Marie Tran, please.
Aww.
People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
But I do.
When it comes to reviewers, many of us reviewers might have made an offhand comment like, oh, I don't understand why people like this, or people that like The Last Jedi are dumb, you know, basic banter stuff. But what I found really bizarre is that every single review that positively reviewed The Last Jedi ended up belittling the fanboys who didn't like it. Tried to put some sort of blame on fanboys for not just accepting this new direction Star Wars has gone in. And I don't understand why.
It's so bad, like, that's so bad that there's this type of human being that people on the internet like to call the consumer. And they will literally force themselves to like something just because people like you don't like it. Haha, does this trigger you? Does me buying all this shit, are you triggered? I love The Last Jedi.
Well, with some of it, you've got a thing called the access media, which is this fake-ass media group of people very similar to us, where the only difference is that they're on the good side of the studios and that the studios invite them to events or give them free previews or give them advance tickets. When it comes to Disney, it is well known that they immediately excommunicate you if you say anything negative. So if you're in the access media, and you have access to Star Wars or any other high-interest Disney IP, chances are your opinion of that IP is entirely unreliable. That's how I ended up sort of chalking up most of the positive reviews, but even then there were people outside of the access media who would belittle the fanboys. One of the most common ones that I saw was Star Wars is a sci-fi fiction in space about space wizards intended for children. And what he means by that is not that you can't criticize Star Wars, but his intention is that if you are emotionally invested in Star Wars and have a negative emotional reaction to a bad Star Wars that you don't like, that's your fault, because you're expecting too much. Most people will end up going to Star Wars is for kids. It's for kids. And I mean, we could debate all day whether or not a movie series where people get their fucking limbs chopped off by laser swords is for kids or not.
It's a family movie, not kids.
Being child accessible and for children are two very different things. What they really are saying is that you can't expect internal logical consistency in the film because it's about silly things. But that's not fair, because even in a movie about magic and fantasy, there still have to be consequences to actions. And there have to be a set of rules that the audience understands that can't be broken. But the ultimate irony is that like 90% of these people who were belittling the fanboys who didn't like The Last Jedi for being deconstructivist and destroying the legacy of Star Wars and killing the pace and the momentum created by Force Awakens, making it impossible for J.J. Abrams to pick up where he left off in The Rise of Skywalker. Like 90% of those people who belittled us for not liking it are now saying that they don't like The Rise of Skywalker. And now I'm confused again.
You didn't consume the correct media. Tisk tisk. Tisk tisk.
A lot of the arguments are, well, if this is what Star Wars fans should expect if they're asking for more Star Wars movies. Most of us aren't asking for more. We don't need more. The movies are being forced upon us. Like Rian Johnson said, they'll never stop making Star Wars. The Star Wars will never end. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. So the best I can do is just be hopeful and positive that the future films will have an internal logical consistency, be proper representations of the Star Wars universe, and continue the legacy started by the old school Star Wars without shitting all over it. So if you didn't like this movie, that's fine. And if you did like this movie and you disagree with me, that's fine too. But at the same time, I didn't enjoy it. I tried really hard to convince myself that I liked it because of how much more fun it was. And there's a lot of fun in it. But my brain was too tired at the end. I had too much to absorb, and it literally took me 24 hours to like come to terms with everything that I experienced.
So everything gets resolved really quickly. There'll be a problem, and in 3 seconds, the problem's solved. Like, constantly, there's no tension. There's no, like, sitting back and being like, oh no, is that, like, is everything gonna be okay? Like, there's none of that.
And then the characters will end up making a sacrifice, making a hard decision that has long-term consequences. Someone will die, C-3PO loses his memory permanently, and then, no, there's no consequences, they're still alive. No, there's no consequences, C-3PO gets his memory back.
You know what would have made this movie perfect? More fake-out deaths. 500 of them wasn't enough. I love the part where someone dies, but they're actually alive. And I also like the part where someone dies, but then it turns out they're actually still alive. More of that, please.
I got really, really sad when they wiped C-3PO's memory.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was a permanent consequence. And I felt like, oh my God, J.J. Abrams has finally developed a set of balls, and he's going to make a hard change. But no, R2-D2 gives his memory back to him almost immediately. He got 3 jokes in about not remembering anything, and then, oh no, he has his memory back.
Yeah, like when he stepped back and he looked at them and he was like, I want to take one last look at my friends. I was like, oh my God, this is actually, like, really sad.
What are you doing there, 3PO?
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
Meaningless.
Nope.
It's meaningless now.
Resolved. 3 seconds. Resolved. I have here, Dark Side Rey was hot.
Okay.
She was. She had like fangs. She was like emo Rey. I don't know. I liked Dark Side Rey.
Her lightsaber was dumb. The folding lightsaber?
Listen.
Pretty much guaranteed you're gonna cut your shins off with that thing.
It just would have been cooler if she turned evil. A good example of something being resolved in 3 seconds was when Rey gives Leia Luke's lightsaber. She's like, I'm not worthy. And then 3 seconds later, takes it back. 2 seconds later, Leia gives it back to Rey.
You gotta take this.
There was just like so many scenes like that. Very convoluted movie. A lot of the movie feels like it was made up on the spot, like as they were filming. Like that's how messy it is. Everything was very convoluted, like again, instantly resolved, but like in the weirdest and most random ways.
Long have I waited. And now you're coming together.
I know that we've been a little spoilery so far, but we're officially going into hardcore spoiler mode now. So skip ahead to this time frame to see our final thoughts on the film. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Leia's death was dumb! I thought that Rian Johnson really dropped the ball with his sloppy way of doing deaths, but at least Rian Johnson had the balls to make hard changes to the Star Wars universe. JJ doesn't at all. He keeps pretending like something meaningful is going to happen, but then takes it away. But then when Leia finally dies, it's equally as dumb as Luke's death at the end of The Last Jedi. Equally as dumb. She's lying in bed, meditating, trying to get Kylo Ren to turn good. Kylo Ren stops fighting for a split second, and Rey kills him.
Just kidding.
Just kidding,
Brings
he's
him back to
alive.
life.
But Leia, that kills Leia somehow. And she's dead. I really wish that they killed her right at the beginning of the movie and that they used that as Rey's motivation. The catalyst that started the plot was to avenge Leia's death, or like some sort of ticking time bomb that was created because Leia's not there anymore and they're all scrambling to sort of pick up the pieces that she left behind.
Yeah, like being like, oh, Leia's dead and Poe, now you're in charge, kind of like what they did. They could have done that early on. It's just messy, messy movie.
Leia should have died in The Last Jedi.
Yes. Why she flew back to the fucking ship.
Princess Leia can fly!
She could have just died.
And Purple Hair Lady should be the leader in the third one. Moving on.
I hated her.
So in the beginning, like I was saying, Kylo Ren's on this quest to find the Emperor. Sort of interesting until we end up finding out what the Emperor ends up teaching Kylo. Sort of ruins the Star Wars universe as a whole. I felt like everything we learned in that opening scene should have been what we learned at the end of the movie. That should have been the catharsis we find out, because what we end up finding out instead is that Rey is the offspring of Palpatine, and that she's a Palpatine, which was, again, one of the worst fan theories. Fine, you know, that works. Technically, though, Ben Solo Kylo Ren is also technically an offspring of Palpatine as well, because Anakin is his grandfather. They allude to this in Revenge of the Sith, but Anakin was created by Palpatine in his mom's womb.
So
Rey is, and they kiss at the end, and that's awesome. It's about family. That's what makes it so magical. Is that Star Wars is about family.
Full of fucking incest. Why?
It's not as bad as when Luke and Leia kiss.
Yeah.
That's worse. So after Kylo Ren's little quest, we immediately go to the main cast. And the main cast is together for most of the film. Huge improvement over the last film.
Yes.
That main cast has great charisma, great chemistry together. I like all three of them, and when they're together, they're funnier. And that's another improvement of this film over the last, is the humor. Not every joke lands, but way more of them land. And none of the humor is stupid anime
Yeah, none of the humor is awkward.
Well, there are a couple, but for the most part, not really.
For a Disney movie, it was less than usual.
I ended up laughing a lot. I mean, a lot of it was laughing at C-3PO, because C-3PO, I mean, he's a classic character. However, the very, very first shot, when they're all in the Millennium Falcon and they're all fixing something really quick before they blast off to go do something, just as they're running to the cockpit, Poe Dameron slaps R2 and goes, R2! And then R2 goes, beep, boop, boop. Except R2 doesn't do anything. He literally just says R2 so that we know R2's there, because we know R2.
This is Star Wars.
You guys remember R2?
Woo.
Beep, boop, boop.
Hell yeah.
R2.
We love them. We love to see it.
I was just cheap.
There were three things I liked about this movie. One, Babu Freak.
Oh, yeah.
The little guy.
Best new character in a Star
Adorable.
Wars film.
Love him.
Hilarious.
Love that little dude. Dio, the new little droid. Adorable.
Of course, she loves Lampy.
We love him.
Dio. No esoteric meaning to that at all,
And
guys. Don't look into that.
Don't even know what that means. And then the third thing, there was a very brief shot of two little porgs.
One shot. I gotta be honest, I was convinced that there were gonna be porgs still living on the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, what happened to that little porg?
I don't know. Great decision to get rid of that.
No!
Maybe their lifespan is very short. Maybe one good thing about them is that they die very quickly. Ew. No! On top of the humor being better, the action was better for the most part. There's a little bit too much going on in the screen. I like JJ's cinematography better than Ryan's. Ryan stood way too far back using long lenses. One of the biggest problems with that is, you know the old adage, the camera adds 10 pounds? JJ likes to get right up close to people with wide angle lenses, and that's way more conducive to good action scenes as well, because you feel more connected to it and you can see more of what's going on.
I liked how big the world felt in this. All the scenes were just like, you felt like these desolate, huge planets.
Big,
you know what I
wide
mean?
establishing shots.
Lots of good establishing shots.
Yeah, I
Those
agree.
were really good. There's a controversy at the end of the movie when everyone's celebrating because, you know, they won. Two women kiss. And they apparently, of course, like I predicted on Twitter, cut that scene out for Singapore this time. I predicted that they would cut it out for a foreign country like they always do. They do this...
It's usually an Asian country.
Yeah, they do this half-assed shit where they'll throw in some, like, LGBT thing, like, for the Western audience, like, woo, guys, look, gays! You love it, right? gaze! Eat it up! But it's like nothing. It's like fucking nothing every time because Disney has no balls and they'll never make a main character gay. Yeah, and I pointed to it when it happened. I was like, there's the gays that they cut out. But I wanted Poe and Finn to be gay.
They sort of set up that was possible in Force Awakens with their big bro hug.
But you know who else wanted Poe and Finn to be gay? Poe's actor, apparently.
Oh yeah, and
was
except
so
that John
upset.
Boyega ends up so obsessed with Rey that there was just no way to make that work by the third movie.
And Rose.
Well, okay, and then speaking of international audiences, China, like the battles for me don't need to make total sense, but the decisions that the military makes, like, hey, how about we don't just slowly run away from the Empire for like 80 hours until we eventually die. Princess Leia getting the fighters to come back to the capital ship while there's literally a base-killing ship that has a big, powerful gun that could instantly cut their ship in half. Like, how about we get rid of that ship that can destroy us before we get the fighters to come back? Like, Poe Dameron was 100% correct in his decision to engage that ship.
You know how technology gets smaller as the years progress?
Like my penis.
First of all, what? Second of all, no. And third of all, I'm talking about the fact that the Death Star in the fourth movie, the first Star Wars ever made, was this big thing that could blow up all planets. Now, every one of those triangle pizza airplane ships has a Death Star attached to it that can blow up a planet. Now they all have them. Now they're all Death Stars. Everything's a Death Star. Like, did you notice that? That's funny. What do you think of that?
That made me angry. When Poe Dameron walked up and it was like, every single one of those Star Destroyers has a planet-destroying gun on it. I just glazed right over. That was the point where I was just like, okay, I'm done. I'm done.
Ridiculous.
It's just, actually, that's on my list of what the fuck moments. I actually have a whole list here of what the fuck moments.
Just go through.
Some of these I already said. Rey is randomly gifted Princess Leia's lightsaber by Luke's Force Ghost. That was probably the thing that made me the most angry in the film. I actually had to catch myself. I almost yelled,
I know.
"What?" out loud in the theater. It was that dumb. Not only did we find out that Leia has a lightsaber, but we also got an arbitrary flashback of CGI young Leia, lightsaber training with CGI young Luke. I guess it sort of makes sense maybe Leia had a lightsaber. That's fine. It's a really clunky, awkward way for us to find out that Leia trained as a Jedi, but fine, that's consistent with the universe. We already know that Leia is Force sensitive and that she's a Jedi, whatever. The problem with this is that by this point in the original trilogy, Luke had already made his own lightsaber. Why can't Rey make her own lightsaber? Why does she have to keep being given lightsabers? Stop! Rey is the worst character.
I know. Finn should have been the main character. I'm sticking by that.
The Sith dagger makes no sense. It's their second quest item they find.
It's a video game.
And the Sith dagger
Aquaman.
just so happens to be the shape of the randomly destroyed Death Star remnants that are lying on a planet's surface.
Babe, that's
This Sith dagger is the same shape as random wreckage. And that's how she finds the next quest item.
so convoluted.
Literally makes no sense.
Made up on the spot. Swear to God, made up on the spot.
So that made me really angry.
Stupid.
The lightsaber teleport handoff at the end.
Yeah, how was he grabbing shit? How were they grabbing shit through the visions? I don't know. Magic. Space magic.
At the end of the film, Rey has both lightsabers, and she and Kylo are separated, but she hands her lightsaber off to Kylo through like a force portal, teleporter. And they set up in the film that they can do this because they end up lightsaber battling through their force communication. and they keep accidentally knocking things from where they are to where the other person is during the lightsaber battle. So it's set up.
I don't understand the logic.
But it's dumb.
I mean, at least JJ set stuff up, because one of my biggest complaints about The Last Jedi was that Rian Johnson didn't properly set up the final fight scene, and when we found out that Luke was a ghost. However, there's a lot of things that JJ sets up that pay off in the end that are even dumber than the Force Ghost thing. Like the Force healing. It was dumb enough when she did it the first time, but then when Kylo Force heals Rey at the end and then immediately dies. I died.
Lando shows up with a fleet of like 1 million ships at the end, and that makes no sense at all. They set up at the end of The Last Jedi that the rebellion was on their own and nobody's willing to help. They're all too scared. And to remind us, earlier in this film, Poe Dameron tells us, remember at the end of the last movie when no one would show up? Yep, because we're on our own, nobody will help. But Lando just leaves. And he comes back and everybody's willing to help all of a sudden. How? Lando did it. It's only like the most important plot point in the film, resolved off screen. A guy going off screen and coming back.
Yeah, it's like they wrote the script, but then like they only had like a few weeks left, and they were like, "Oh shit, there's a plot hole. What do we do?" Lando solved it off screen.
Like it's literally the most important plot point in the film, and it's resolved off screen.
And
then to continue that, after they beat the final boss, they're just like, people are rising up all over the galaxy. How? They establish that the fleet of ships that they're fighting at the end of this movie is a completely separate fleet of ships from the First Order. They're not the same group. They're different. The whole rest of the galaxy has no idea that they're fighting this battle. They have no idea that they're fighting the old Emperor and his old fleet of ships. Yet they all just simultaneously decide to rise up and fight the First Order. How? Lando did it, I bet. Lando did it. Rey burns Kylo Ren's TIE fighter in a bonfire, burns it.
She was mad.
Because she was mad. She was like throwing wood at it so it would burn more. Knowing full well that there was a thing she needed inside, and then she tells Luke's Force Ghost, "Oh, I can't do it. I burned down Kylo's ship and I destroyed that thing." And then Luke goes, "You have everything you need." And then she just grabs that thing she needs, and it's fine, and it's fine. Everything is fine.
Resolved.
It was fine.
Resolved.
Literally made no sense at all. A woman shoots down a TIE fighter with a bow and arrow.
Yes, that was
something. Did that happen, or was that just in my head?
That happened. And you looked at me and you laughed.
A woman standing on a Star Destroyer, floating in the upper atmosphere of a planet, took out her bow and arrow and shot it at a TIE fighter going Mach speed past her, and in one shot, took it down. Was that in my head?
No, that happened. Unfortunately, that happened.
That was real?
Yes.
Apparently Stormtrooper armor also is not strong enough to stop a small arrow. Stormtrooper armor is beyond useless. Not only does it not stop blaster bolts, it doesn't even stop an arrow.
You know what I was thinking of? Now that we know that Finn is a guy and he has feelings and he's a dude and he could be good, now it's like every time a stormtrooper gets shot and fucking killed and just slaughtered, you're just
He's
kind
another
of like,
potential rebel.
Yeah.
Just slaughtered because he was on the wrong side at the wrong time.
It's just like, it'd be better to be like, "Hey guys, I know you're evil, but you don't gotta do this. Come on, rise up." It's like, okay, just fucking kill them. They're all, they're like potential allies in this fight, but okay.
That was one of the big blue balls from the first film, is that it was interesting to see Finn break out of the role of a stormtrooper, but they barely explored it.
Yeah, and he's reduced to Rey! Rey!
Rey! Rey! Rey! Poor Boyega, man. I feel bad for Daisy Ridley too, though, because she too is not a bad actress. They just saddled her with a bad character. And just the whole final boss fight with the Emperor.
Oh my god.
The whole thing was stupid.
That was stupid.
Every second of it was dumb. Like there was a split second of it that I thought was kind of cool when the Emperor shot lightning straight up at the fleet, and you get that deep boom sound. That was sort of neat. But then the actual visual of it turning into like a dome of electricity and all the ships, that just took me out of it. Why is any of this happening? Why is any of this happening?
So at the end, when everyone's celebrating, the girl they met on that planet, who's also an ex-stormtrooper, sits with Lando, and she's like, I don't know who I am. And Lando's like, let's find out. Is that foreshadowing for another movie?
To be honest, if it
like
is, I would be willing to watch
a Lando
that film.
movie with a sidekick? Like, that'd be fun.
A Lando movie with a sidekick like Finn, where they actually explore...
Yes, being an ex-stormtrooper.
Yes.
That's what it sounded like, right? Like, let's find out. It's like, so that's gonna be a thing, I guess, yeah. When
they broke into the Star Destroyer, they had that medallion that goes in their dashboard that lets them on the ship. But then they run out of the ship, immediately kill 2 stormtroopers, and are able to roam around the ship for quite a long time without setting off an alarm.
There's no security cameras.
That made no sense at all. An alarm would have gone off immediately after killing 2 stormtroopers. They're in a hangar bay. Like, do you know how hangar bays work? There's gonna be a guy looking out a window down at what's happening in the hangar bay. There's gonna be a supervisor there, like an operations sergeant or something, somebody there making sure that nobody's fucking dying in the hangar bay when there's strange, unmarked ships just floating on board.
That's all I have to say about this movie. It was just a mess. A mess.
Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. Your destiny.
So overall, final thoughts?
It was fun in the theater. Like, it was fun, but messy and convoluted and just kind of an onslaught of shit. But it was fun. So I recommend it as just like a popcorn flick, like if you just want to put on an action movie. It's fine. I give it like a 5 out of 10.
You think it passes?
Mm-hmm. Because there were scenes in it that I liked, things were cool, the visuals were cool, the acting was okay, like, it was fine, it was a movie, it was just a mess.
It was a movie.
Yes, that is how low the bar is for Star Wars. It was a movie, so.
Would you recommend it to anyone?
I would recommend it to people who just like Star Wars movies, and like the Star Wars universe and like Star Wars things, I guess. What about you?
I can see how people enjoyed this. It's easier for me to understand how people enjoyed this over Last Jedi. Again, I'm going to reiterate, if you liked Last Jedi, or if you like this, that's fine. Entertainment's subjective. And I mean, it's fun space opera with big explosions and lightsabers. Who doesn't love that, right? There were a lot of moments where I would even say I enjoyed the film. However, I can't bring myself to say that I liked it. The words refuse to come out of my mouth. I can't like it. I didn't like it. I can't like it. I'm gonna rate it a 4.5. I know that's petty. But what I want to get across is that with very few minimal changes, a few edits, a few things removed, a little bit of streamlining, and maybe some more motivation for Rey that makes sense, this could be a really good movie. But there's just enough mistakes that it ruins the experience for me. I would recommend this film literally to any Star Wars fan. I definitely... Part of the reason why Last Jedi was so poorly received had to do with the way that Force Awakens set up the Disney ownership of the IP. J.J. Abrams basically communicated to us that Star Wars is going back to form, fixing all the mistakes from the prequels. Moving forward, we're going to have this much more fleshed out, much more familiar feeling Star Wars universe. And then Rogue One came out immediately after that. Arguably the best Star Wars film since Empire Strikes Back. Really set us up to believe that Disney knew what they were doing, that they were going to take care of the IP for us. They were going to give the fans what they expected and move it forward. Last Jedi, Rian Johnson basically pulled that rug out from under us. And the thing is, like, I can like a deconstructivist story of Star Wars. Knights of the Old Republic 2, the video game, everybody likes to point out, is a deconstructivist take on the Star Wars universe. There's ways to do it that doesn't shit on the fans and doesn't shit on what makes the Star Wars universe great. Going off on a tangent.
Yeah, you go on a million tangents.
It just was too much like SpongeBob SquarePants after season 3. We're in the post-season 3 era of SpongeBob SquarePants. That's all entertainment to me now, though. All entertainment is just too much stuff happening, and I don't understand what's happening. I'm so frustrated and defeated. I just feel defeated. I feel like this film finally defeated me. I feel like I can finally take off the Star Wars t-shirt and just continue on with my life like a normal human being.
Press X to doubt.
Just gonna lie in my Millennium Falcon cockpit bed and cry myself to sleep.
Oh no!
The Force will be with you.
Always.
Right before this film premiered, Kathleen Kennedy announced that Disney will no longer be doing trilogy structures for their Star Wars movies. Thoughts?
None. Don't care.
Thoughts? Well, I think not only is this Disney admitting defeat and admitting that they have no idea what they're doing with the Star Wars IP. They literally are incapable of making a 3-act structure that's consistent. I think also it's a good thing because now we're not going to get annual Star Wars releases. That works for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or at least worked for a while. Something like that works because every Marvel character, even though the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a consistency to the tone and the structure of their films, each character is unique and different. The logic of the movies are different, and the meaning of each film is different. There's more flexibility there, so you can get an annual film and literally get something different every time. Ultimately, the rules in every Star Wars movie are going to be very, very similar. The movies are just not going to be that different. Yeah, maybe in like 2 or 3 years, I wouldn't mind seeing another Star Wars film, but definitely not next year.
It's gonna be next year.
No, they haven't announced it. Nothing. We need to watch The Mandalorian, though.
Yes.
That I'm excited for.
We need to see Baby Yoda. That I'm excited
I'm
for.
a huge fan of Favreau. He's the one that started the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Iron Man 1. I trust him. I'm sure it's going to be a good series. You have to pay for Disney Plus, though, because
Yes.
I pay for Netflix.
Yes.
Are you going to set that up? You going to set that up? You going to set that up? Happy New Year, everybody.